Hi, and welcome to today's Atos LinkedIn live session on Future of Business is Sustainability. This is indeed a very, very special LinkedIn we're going to have today. My name is Friis Jankowski, head of the Virtual BTech, and it's my pleasure to be your host for today's session. I will have speakers like Alexandra Knupe, like Stuart Lemmon, but also Thomas Husson, who will shed some light on some of the questions on where sustainability is standing right now in companies, where it has to go, and how we can reach those very ambitious goals ahead. If you, dear participants, have any questions, just feel free to put them into the comments, and we'll try to take care that those questions will be delivered and answered during the session. Over the coming years, sustainability will become a top priority for CEOs. And it's really a CEO thing, which we found out, and that's absolutely the truth. And companies are now coming out with taking those ambitions way more serious. And you can see the announcement of different companies, some of them working together with Atos already, how to contribute reaching all those targets. We're going to talk a little bit about the business of sustainability and sustainability as a business. But yes, as already mentioned, it could not be the better way than to do that alone. So let me introduce to you right now, Alexandra Knupe, Head of Group Corporate Social Responsibility, joining us today. Hello, Alexandra. How are you doing?
Hello, I'm fine. Thank you. Very great to be here.
That's absolutely great. Great to have you here into this session. You will tell us a bit more about that, but let's bring up the other panelists for today's session. And second one is Stuart Lemmon, Managing Director for North Europe for EcoAct. Hi, Stuart. Great to have you here with us.
Hi, Friso. Good to see you. Thanks for inviting me.
Thank you for being with us. And last but not least, our guest speaker today, Thomas Husson, Vice President, Principal Analyst at Forrester Research. Hi, Thomas. Great to also have you here. And now we are complete.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for having me.
That's so perfect. So this topic is now very widespread in the news. We can really read it anywhere. We heard like COP26 was going on. So many ambitions in different companies. We're talking about totally different topics in business processes, in what companies can do, how they could contribute in that. And that's far away from just like doing simple things of taking a little bit more care about waste reduction. Also, decarbonization is a huge topic. But what does sustainability really mean to you as a broader theme? And I would like to ask that to you, Stuart, as like from EcoAct, who could be the one answering that than you could do?
Thank you, Friso. Yeah, always good to get the big question to start the session. Yeah, so sustainability for me, I think it's always good to go back to some of the basic definitions. I think probably the best and most appropriate definition for our discussion really is the one that was shared in the Brundtland report in the late 1980s, and it was a report looking at sustainable development and trying to really sort of clarify what sustainable development meant. And the definition of sustainability shared there and widely used ever since, and one that I think is very pertinent, talks about meeting the needs of the present without compromising the ability of future generations to meet their own needs. And I think that sort of really encapsulates very broadly what sustainability is about. Sustainability has been adopted and is often talked about as ESG in businesses, so environment and social and governance issues. So it is quite a broad range of issues. But if we think about the current crises that potentially impact on future generations and prevent future generations meeting their needs, then we really are focusing on the environmental issues. So we're thinking about climate change, because that's very significant and an urgent threat. We're talking about biodiversity loss. We're talking about other environmental issues around kind of pollution and plastics in the ocean and that kind of thing. So that for me is very much the kind of core of sustainability as a definition. In terms of what that means for business, I think it's really important to understand that business has a role to play in being a good corporate citizen, acting with integrity, reducing the impact on the environment. But we also have to remember that to be a sustainable business, you have to continue to operate and be profitable into the future. So we also have to think about how sustainability issues, and particularly the environment, particularly climate change, may have an impact on business as well, and the operating models of businesses going forward. So that's the sort of big picture view. That's what sustainability means for me, and how we can apply that in the business context.
Well, thank you for this. That was quite a definition. Maybe Alexandra, Thomas, you want to add something on this?
Yeah, thank you. So sustainability. So Atos actually covers all areas of sustainability, but I think what is important, talking now from a business perspective, is to define what is really material for Atos, for example, as a digital service provider. So, and I think what Stuart just said, this definition is perfect, because we as a company dealing with innovations, future topics, we really need to think about what is the impact of digital to sustainability, and the other way around. So we need to consider already today, how will a digital world look like today, in a few years, and how do we need to consider environmental aspects. And in Atos, we do this already for around about 10 years. So it's not new for Atos. We already kind of first environmental report target setting 10 years ago. So we're quite lucky that we do have some, let's say, experience, some track record. So we know how to deal with environmental targets, which is great today, as the topic gained that much importance. But I think to do this, let's say, material assessment is very important, and the scope for Atos is definitely digital for sustainability. What is the impact? What do we need to challenge? Where can we support? And anticipating that our world will become more and more digital, the importance of this sector grows significantly.
Right, thank you. Maybe the last in the round, Thomas, your view on sustainability.
Well, I would echo what Alexandra and Stuart mentioned. I think there might be a cultural perspective where, sustainability was a big S in Europe, as maybe equals, ESG, while sustainability was a small S from maybe a US perspective, is more about environmental sustainability. I think the two are very strongly interconnected, but it's definitely, to Stuart's point about, having businesses becoming more sustainable, and at the end of the day, becoming generation safe.
Right. Thank you for this. That's very interesting. And I think, we also need to think about that and see where that's all going to be. It's like, and the thing is, can sustainability be developed as a competitive advantage? We heard about sustainability is not just a thing we have to do, we should do it, but there are also very, very positive side effects. We heard about sustainability can be a business, and sustainability is very important to do, and see it as a business, but also doing good with that. So the competitive advantage of that, how are companies now dealing with sustainability, and what's their advantage, and if they do it right, and how to do that? Is that something you would? Yeah.
I think there are actually two aspects. So one aspect is that especially the environmental aspect becomes kind of mandatory. So there's no business discussion which is not considering environmental aspects. So I think all businesses, and even in each sector, they need to address this topic. And the second aspect, that it could become really a value proposition. And I think we all need to support this, that considering environmental aspects, doing something good for environment needs to become a value proposition. It needs to become attractive to invest into all kinds of tools, solutions, measures, whatever is necessary to fight the climate change, and it needs to be attractive. So we need to design a business value considering environment, which, as I said, creates a value as well. So there are again two aspects: a mandatory part and an add-on value proposition part, which could be quite creative, but needs to be measurable as well, because we have some serious challenges, and we need to be sure that we move in the right direction.
Okay, thank you very much.
I
Who
mean,
wants to add something? Stuart, yes.
Yeah. I mean, having worked in sustainability and environmental consultancy for a long time now, until very recently, we always had to make the business case for environmental sustainability, and that typically looks at the various stakeholders involved. So from an operational perspective, if you can remove and be more efficient around energy and fuel use, then there are clear bottom line savings, particularly at a time like this when fuel prices are very, very volatile and very high. We've also found that environmental sustainability is very important for talent attraction and retention these days in terms of competitive advantage, particularly in millennial generations. People want to work for an organization that understands this stuff and takes it seriously. So I think and there's opportunity for products and services that are more sustainable and add value to clients. So I think there's always been a good, strong business case for it. But I'd sort of echo what Alexandra is saying there. I think it's becoming more and more mandatory and more expected, and particularly the net zero agenda. Organizations are setting carbon emission reduction targets, both for their own operations and for their supply chains. So if you are in the supply chain of an organization setting targets, you are expected to reduce your emissions. Otherwise, you won't be able to compete with your peers, and you won't be able to get that business. So whilst I think there's opportunity for competitive advantage, I think fairly rapidly it's going to become an existential issue if you don't tackle sustainability well, and if you're not at the forefront of doing it and achieving your net zero gains and aims, then you will be left behind. So I think there's yes, you can lead, but I think you also need to not get left behind.
Well, thank you for this. I also think so. It's important now that you want to work for a company taking those goals really serious and just like not on some nice slides or just like some words, but also like really that you can see it, that you can feel it, and having the purpose. Thomas.
Yeah, I would go a step further and even say that sustainability is the next wave of business disruption and transformation. You ask, is it a competitive advantage? I think that the short answer is yes. And companies that are in this multi-year transformation journey to become more sustainable will get a competitive advantage, because it's not about ethics, it's not about doing the right things, and it's not about the regulatory environment. Of course, it matters, and yes, it is important, and companies will be forced to move that to that stage. But compliance, I think, is the least mature stage, and as Stuart mentioned, employees are demanding it. That's one way to acquire and retain talents. They want you to walk the talk, otherwise they're not going to work for a company. And consumers are increasingly demanding it as well. Not everyone, of course, but across the different countries, we see between 10 and 25% of super green consumers who really care about it. They usually have strong purchasing power. And I think companies that are really rethinking their business model, rethinking the value chains to combine both a profitable growth and a clear vision of how they impact the planet and how they contribute to society will get a competitive advantage. I'm definitely seeing this, and we're starting to see firms being more mature at that, getting benefits out of it.
Right. Okay. Well, we heard also something about the goals and the strategy, and if you are there or not. But it's like you always say, like you can't really coordinate something or plan something if you can measure it. But it's like, how can you measure sustainability? Is there a sustainability index which exactly shows something, or is it just like overall? Because to see like how sustainable are we and how sustainable should we get? Where is the gap in between? I think that's quite important to know, because where to go, and if you don't have any target or a real measurement. Thomas, something for you, or Alexandra, you would like to take that?
Yeah, sure. So there are clear targets, and so it's really nice that these targets are not given by the companies, by the organizations, but by scientific organizations. So they actually kind of scientifically proved, they neutral. And as Stuart just mentioned, for example, a net zero target, and there's a clear definition what needs to be done and what needs to be achieved, so that an organization could claim to be net zero.
Right.
And what I would like to mention as well, it's very important to provide a very accurate, clear, and most standardized reporting, because a stakeholder, they want to compare organizations how they do achieving their targets. To enable this comparison, they need to have standards. So a recommendation from my side is to set targets that are required or that are recommended by scientific organizations, for example, science-based targets, CDP, you name them, and provide and track data in a standardized way, so that everybody can see what is, for example, Atos doing to achieve net zero.
Thank you. So that's really just like a very important view on that. But just like, what do organizations need to do right now? Because like we had some measurements, we have the goals, but it's like sometimes it's hard to start. And we already heard in other calls we have done, for example, that it's more important to start than to be exactly right at the right point. So there is no other option to start. And on the other way, you cannot do a little piece. And I remember a call I had with Pierre Barnaby, where he said, like, just think of it as if you would do your new bathroom. You would not just like take one tile off and replace it. You're planning it, and you have to start, and you have to have like a complete strategy in that, but find a starting point. And at the end, the strategy will be clear, because you have to take off the tile before you put the new one back in. Anything else to say, like how can we help companies to find the starting point and the next 3 steps to go to be sure where they are on their journey, and how we could contribute on them achieving this?
Stuart.
Okay, that's a call.
That's good. I was going to offer. I think when you look at particular issues, climate change is one. We don't have long. There is a very, very high degree of urgency, so we need to act. So you're absolutely right. We need to not pick the perfect action, but we need to do lots of actions, and we need to do them quickly. In terms of how you define that for an organization, as Alexandra said earlier, you need to identify what's material for the organization. Clearly, if you are a large energy user, a steel firm, a cement company, then primary fuel and emissions is going to be very, very material to you. Clearly, if you're an IT digital firm, then the energy consumed by data centers and your digital infrastructure, that will be material to you. So knowing what is material for your business is an important starting point. And you can do that by, as you've said, measuring and getting a good handle on the data. So you can identify what's material, you can identify where your big issues are, the big emissions or the big areas of waste or pollution, and then you can tackle those. A longer term goal helps, such as net zero, does help to focus everybody in the business, including the exec, on that achievement. And it also helps to then cascade the effort through the business, because I think one of the things we've learned recently in the last year or two is that net zero and the achievement of long-term goals isn't just the responsibility of the sustainability team. As Thomas was saying, organizations that are going to succeed in this space are the ones that are building sustainability into all of their business functions, building sustainable decision making into everything that they do. Something Alexandra and I are working quite hard on here at Atos, and it's those businesses that understand that and cascade that decision making into all of their businesses that will be able to undertake all of those small actions which will help them achieve the target. So materiality, good measurements and assessment to identify your hotspots, and then a cascading of responsibility and decision making across the business.
Thank you, Stuart. Thomas?
Yeah, just adding on this is not about defining a strategy. It's how you integrate and execute it in any function, any business unit, any country. And so I think you need a purpose and you need a bold vision that starts from the leadership clearly, but you also need to empower employees so that they can act on it, have initiatives. You need to align your business model to this purpose, which requires close collaboration with the financial team, understanding this notion of double materiality impact and how you evolve your business model. some firms that are more advanced are, for example, using carbon as a sort of the new currency to evaluate their impact and have a slightly different approach. They do product life cycle analysis to really rethink the overall impact and take into consideration, all kind of emissions, scope 1, 2, 3, etc. And I think one very, very important element, and I know we're going to touch on this, is the importance of developing trust, not just with consumers, but also with employees, and with an ecosystem of partners, because you can't achieve this massive task without partners, and without an ecosystem, and without the civil society and NGOs. That's why we refer often to the G in ESG, because governance matters here.
Mm-hmm. Okay, well, thank you. The very important point. Maybe just also like what is the most important lesson Atos has learned on its journey to sustainability? And I have to point that out to you, Alexandra. I hope that's fine, because what can we say about that? Like becoming a sustainable organization, one of the big goals. We had made an announcement reaching the goals way earlier, but there are some lessons we have already learned on our way there. And I think it would be great also for an ending of this session today to just get a bit more about the learnings and the route to go, and maybe just like a little outlook, if I may ask.
Yeah, sure. So the biggest learning for, I already mentioned this. So the biggest learning, the biggest experience I would like to share is to provide this clear, accurate, standardized data, because
Right.
you need to know where you are, and you need to measure the progress. A second recommendation is what Stuart said. If an organization like Atos would, and we're quite a big organization in 71 countries, so if we want to move forward achieving environmental targets, we need to engage the full organization. So, and then looking forward to the future, just a tiny little example. So the 95% of the emissions caused by Atos are due to the value chain. So due to products we buy, products we sell. So not to scope 1, not 2, but scope 3. So looking forward, I think this engagement of the full, complete value chain to work on net zero target is very important. And this will completely change the way how organizations within a value chain need to interact and exchange. They will need to exchange information of their carbon footprint. They will need to exchange life cycle assessments to see where is more energy efficiency or not. They will need to exchange, they need to find the common communication standard for environmental or sustainability related data, which is not existing today. So I think there's a gap, a target for us here, for the digital companies. And again, this communication, interaction, organizations in the value chain, this will be completely different in the near future, not in the long-term future.
Thank you so much for this. And I think, yes, transparency is one of the words here. It's like we need to have the data. We need to have the data available. And also there needs to be a new sharing of that data. So as you mentioned, the value chain itself, I need to know what happened before, and I have an influence what happens afterwards. And that's, again, very important for the ones that have. Stuart, what's your take? One of the most important lessons also you learned from your side over the last, let's say, 2 years. And what would be your one thing to tell now to our audience?
I'm probably not going to add anything very different from what Alexandra said. Data is massively important. It's incredibly important to understand what you're doing so that you can work out what you need to do and where you're going to get to, and engaging the business in doing that, and getting all levels of the organization, particularly the exec level, to understand the need for that. Is one of the key lessons we've learned. We've had quite a lot of board level engagements with our clients, and on occasion we've had to kind of go around the loop a couple of times with the exec to make sure that they fully understand what we're trying to achieve for the long term. Not that it's not a bolt-on. If we truly as society are going to achieve net zero, it requires transformation in everything every organization does. So that becomes fundamental and strategic for organizations. So getting it right and brought in at the top, and then cascaded down with good data in the organization is a really good foundation for getting it right.
Perfect. So find the right it and then do it right. That's a good plan to go.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for joining us for this session, Stuart. We'll have another talk in the next couple of weeks. I'm looking ahead for this. Thank you for being with us today, Stuart.
Very well.
Thank you. Thomas, what's your learning and what's your key takeaway?
Well, for me, I would make an analogy between sustainability transformation and digital transformation. I mean, digital is also an enabler of sustainability transformation, but there are lots of lessons to be learned. And here it's really on embarking on this journey and beyond measurement that was referred to earlier. I think it's about not necessarily thinking that you can't be profitable if you're sustainable. On the contrary, firms that are more sustainable are actually more profitable for some of the reasons that we've mentioned. If you look at their ability to acquire and retain talents, to better serve customers, and these customers are going to be more and more demanding. And so I think if you're not serious about this transformation, then indeed you risk facing greenwashing and clients will know about it. And so the earlier you start, not only the better for the planet, but also the better for achieving this multi-year transformation journey that some leaders have embarked on.
Thank you so much. So authenticity is also a very important point, just like walk the talk and really make it happen. I think that's one very strong key message now companies have to adopt. Thank you for sharing this with us, Thomas. Also looking ahead to one of our next sessions. Thank you for having the time with us today.
Thanks for having me.
Okay, Alexandra, now as like a close up of all the session today, like we heard about like measuring, that we need to have data, that we need to have transparency, that we need really to share and also walk the talk. So if I would come up to you and Brad now and say like, okay, what would be the one thing you would tell me on my path for the next 2 years to do so? Is there something you could give me as an advice?
So first of all, passion. You need to want to change something. So passion and interest, being a little idealistic. But most important, everyone needs to understand what is net zero. So if you want to know, go to the SBTI webpage, for example, Science Based Target Initiative, and read what is required for net zero, because we all need to understand what is necessary to achieve net zero. What does it mean to achieve 1.5 degree net zero? So we all need to know the terms. And then be interested, read, listen to the people, try to exchange, try to learn, because I think the most important foundation to fight against climate change, do something for environment, is that we gain the knowledge we all need. What is really creating an impact? What is the biggest threat? What needs to be avoided? What could support near term, long term? So my strong recommendation is start learning, go to the Greenhouse Gas Protocol web pages, go to Science-Based Targets, other sources, and learn about the most important terms to be in this topic. And then it's quite visible what needs to be done.
Okay, thank you so much. So passion, yes, that's a very important thing. And also just like understanding. So really dig into the topics to understand that. And what you said, that's important. And there is a quote that says like, if nothing changes, nothing changes. So it's really about like doing the things and getting them done. Thank you so much, Alexandra, for joining us for today's session. Looking ahead for the next ones up to come.
Thank you. My pleasure.
Well, I think that was a great overview on business is sustainability, and the future of business is sustainability, and how important it is. Always, there is not the first perfect step you can take, but it's important that you are taking a step. If you want to learn more, just reach out to us. We're happy to help. And also, you heard some of the speakers of today's session, Alexandra Knupe, Thomas Husson, and Stuart Lemmon. They are also reachable via LinkedIn, for example. And if you want to know more about the one or the other topic, and that we are digging deeper into one of those, just let us know. And we're looking ahead to see you soon live on LinkedIn again. Thank you very much for watching. Have a great day.